Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our very first Red Ladders event of Carnegie Mellon, Australia. Red Ladders is a platform for alumni of CMU-A to return to campus, albeit virtually, and share with us their stories of success and some of the knowledge from their areas of expertise. Our inaugural guest is Marco Salinas, originally from Mexico, who graduated with a Master of Science in Information Technology in 2013. Marco, thank you very much for joining us and welcome.
On the contrary, thank you.
Thanks so much, Marco. Perhaps I could start off and ask you to introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing currently.
Yes, absolutely. First, let me say thanks to Emil, of course, Danu, Nerejny, and all the faculty at CMU to make this happen. It's always great to be back. This is a huge effort. And of course, kudos to all the students for joining remotely. I'm founder at Hubble. Hubble is a spin-off from Suho. Suho is an energy efficiency consultancy company that is set to transform the energy efficiency into a more sustainable experience. And with Hubble, basically what we are doing is we're using data and technology in order to make more available energy efficiency and its intrinsic benefits to all parties in the industry, particularly in the construction industry.
That's fantastic, Marco. So perhaps you could give us a little bit more detail on how AI is used to improve energy efficiency and how you've actually succeeded in that regard.
Correct, absolutely. Well, yes, so we're using data in order to optimize designs and in order to explain all the industry in different stages of the construction process, like what's the benefit of an energy efficient design. So we used around perhaps 10 or 13 years of previous data that we have been accumulating here at Suho. And we started training some AI models, and we started running this proof of concept that we were able to explain what's the, perhaps first to come up with a really quick estimation of on how something is going to perform, even without having to have the expert knowledge of how to do, like, the complexity that sits behind of running energy efficiency estimation. So what we did in first place was to remove the complexity. So then we created a tool where anyone can actually start using it and start understanding a little bit better. This tool is using a trained model and is being used by a sales rep. So for example, if you are planning to buy a house and then you now go to a builder, that builder now is capable of estimating what is going to be the energy efficiency and start having those conversations from the beginning. And then in the case there is a drafter that is modifying the drawing because of you would like to have an additional window or a wall, then you're capable of having that discussion around what is going to be the impact on energy efficiency. And then at the end of the day, this what is going to generate is more awareness. There is a huge benefit of having an energy efficiency house, and you can see it in different ways. Like, for example, the value of the property as an asset actually goes up. So it's a huge, big deal. Like, actually can go up all the way to something between 3 to 5%. You can access green loans for with a better interest rate, and that will obviously impact your pocket. In addition, you will be saving energy, and power bills obviously will come down. And at the end of the day, you are going to be helping, to fight positively, the climate change as well. So it's huge, the impact. There is a lot of complexity, like trying to estimate what's the energy efficiency performance. And with the use of data, basically what we're trying to do is to reduce that complexity, optimize the design, and empower all the stakeholders in this in the domain to understand and create awareness.
Oh, that's fantastic, Marco. Maybe I'll take you back in time a bit. And I mean, you've obviously achieved quite a lot. But tell us, what led you to pursue your studies at CMU-A? What was the dream like at that time?
Well, I must confess that CMU has been always in my DNA. Early in my career, I was able to get enrolled in a certificate from something that was called at the time CTE, Carnegie Technology Education. This was during my bachelor's degree. So it was an online type of certification for programming in Java. I remember that. And since then, I didn't know that much about Carnegie Mellon at that point in time, but that was perhaps what it triggered to start following the university. And then later on in my career, I was able to join and start working for the Mexican government. And I was surrounded by a highly skilled group of individuals, which they recommended me to continue my studies and to have CMU as perhaps the university that topped the list. And by then I knew perhaps everything about CMU and its strong presence, not only US but perhaps worldwide. Then while doing my research about Carnegie Mellon, I found out that there was this amazing program, a combined program in Australia. And I had the opportunity, perhaps when I was a young adult, to come and visit Australia. So then that was a no-brainer for me. Immediately, I was able to think in a American degree combined with the life balance of Australia, and that immediately, triggered my reaction to do whatever it was at hand to try to get enrolled in this program.
So that's great. So you had the dream before, and it came true and you arrived in Australia, and you obviously studied hard during your time there. I won't ask you specifically about your studies, but tell us, after you graduated, what did you do next, and how was your career trajectory like until you reached this position?
I would say that perhaps my career trajectory started again once I reached Australia. One of my one of my peers at uni actually recommended me to one entity here in Australia and recommended it for a job interview. So it was actually quite aggressive how during that interview here in Australia, during my first semester at Carnegie Mellon, I was able to, this by a recommendation of another student, go to an interview. And I remember really well that during the interview, I was telling the interviewers that I was studying at Carnegie Mellon. At that time, they didn't know that Carnegie Mellon existed in Australia. And I remember that really well, grabbing the phone and Googling just to see it was true if Carnegie Mellon was in Australia and in Adelaide. Perhaps was a little bit of a surprise for that. We're talking 2012. So then when they saw that actually was real, that I was studying at Carnegie Mellon, that immediately changed the entire reaction of the entire interview. And I would even say that one of the drivers for actually getting that job, was the very first job here in Australia, was me saying that I was studying at Carnegie Mellon. I also must say that, that impression has changed over the years. I was, positively impressed to see that recently in one gathering at KPMG, everyone was talking really highly about CMU students and how we're actually making a change here in Adelaide. And this was not the only time that I actually have been hearing this. Me top on the construction tech, again here in Adelaide, I was able to feel proud that actually this is already happening, that you can see more and more people talking highly and positive about CMU students.
Well, it's very inspiring, Marco. I mean, for current students, who are listening to you and may listen to you later on, what advice do you have, for them at this stage to build their own red ladder here at CMU and try and climb things as you have done? So, what advice do you have?
Well, to always stay honest and use that knowledge that you are receiving to positively influence our world. As perhaps positively fighting climate change. That could be one. Um, Another recommendation would be to set high academic standards. I know that perhaps people would say that the grades are sometimes not that important. I would say that the other things, or perhaps not the only one, but it would be like at least an element that will help you open a new door. So not only the high standard in your personal life, but in professionally and in academia, and to open to new opportunities and to be and to try to interact and connect with different people that you know during this amazing period of time that we are studying, and to get to know a range of people that will help you perhaps in the future to start working in your network.
That's great. So this obviously opens up a few questions for some of our participants, I think. So does anyone have any questions for Marco? He's obviously achieved quite a lot. His 2013 wasn't too far away, so he's actually, you could probably see yourself in some way like him later on. Do you have any questions that come to mind?
I have a question.
Yeah,
Hi,
Brittany.
Marco. I'm Brittany Pruitt. I'm in the Global MS-PPM program. And my question is about your transition coming from working in the Mexican government to working in Australia. I guess, could you talk a little bit about your experience coming to work in Australia, like in a different country, and making that transition, and kind of the things that you did to get ready to work in a different country?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to be honest, perhaps one of the biggest challenge. Here in Australia, obviously they keep track of your career history, and if you go to a job interview, always you'll be asked. But certainly there is a way of having experience locally in Australia. So that's something that people will be looking at, definitely. So my recommendation for making that transition smooth would be to engage or try to start, acquiring that experience by volunteering, or like doing some type of internship in an Australian company, or even start trying to engage with the workforce as soon as you can, because that will definitely give you bonus points for getting that job, landing that job.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hey Marco, I have a question. I'm Gautam. So my question is, to spin off a startup like Hubble must have had its own challenges. It's almost like taking up an entrepreneurial role. Can you tell me a little bit about the challenges that you faced? Was it easy? Was it tough? The entire process until now, how has it been for you?
Well, in this case, we're spinning off from Sugo. Being a startup itself is a challenge, given that perhaps 90% of the startups actually fail. For giving an example of this, I worked in the past in 2 failed startups. So actually, this is the lucky third, I would say. So being just part of the startup is a challenge itself. In this case, in this particular case, the biggest challenge has been trying to show that value to the parent company and explain to the different stakeholders why it's really important to perhaps spin off as a different entity in order to, first of all, try to attract more talent. And perhaps that's one of the reasons we're trying to do it independently, trying with the aim of attracting talent with the aim of keeping the staff that we already got in place, and in order to make it more attractive. So perhaps trying to explain and convey that reasoning behind the creating a startup has been the biggest challenge so far.
Thank you.
This is obviously on top of trying to spin off or trying to generate a startup, which is trying to find the correct fit of a product in the market, try to estimate what's the market size, and try to do that research that at the end of the day is going to help you get that traction from the clients and potentially in the future even disrupt the market.
Anyone else?
Hi, Marco. Can you tell about your failed startups just as lessons that we can learn from?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first, I joined the first was a marketplace. I joined the marketplace with a few actually peers, students from Carnegie Mellon University as well. It was a really good experience. I was hired as a product manager, and perhaps one of my toughest decisions, because I had the option to join a big company in Singapore and join a big company here in Australia, one of perhaps top tiers. And then I decided actually to go for a management role here in Adelaide in a startup. I didn't have perhaps the experience at that time of all the implications of what is working on a startup actually means, and the amount of research that you need to have at hand in order to find the correct fit to a market and to target those clients. And basically one of the failures perhaps that we did is trying to develop a solution without going and getting early feedback from the client. So it was up to perhaps in this case, to the board in that moment in time and to the co-founders that we were jumping heavily into the development of a product without having to try to find, like a small proof of a concept that is getting traction. So for give you a really quick example, we were going with a mobile application that it was meant to have events, but then they, instead of just going out and trying to understand what are the needs in the market, they started to adding more and more features without validating those and before jumping into the development. So basically what happened, we drained our resources in entire efforts by trying to add more without having that validation from the client. So something that I learned from that is that you need to find what is going to be the key main feature of the value that you are trying, or the value proposition that you are trying to present to your clients. Try to concentrate in a small market, also known as the beachhead, and then within both, the core feature and the beachhead, try to get a really early validation before jumping heavily into development.
Anyone else? Let me ask you another question, Marco.
Yeah.
The context has changed, with this the coronavirus, and everyone is now, as we are doing here, it's more of a remote operation. How do you see things changing for you? As someone who had a certain set of plans in terms of how you'd like to grow the business and your own career. How do you think things will change for you?
I would say that we always need to keep in the back of our minds that we need to adapt to the circumstances. Now with the use of technology, we can continue having those, research sessions, or even those one-on-ones with the clients, to obtain what is going to be, or validate what is going to be the next step. So so far the plans is just to try to avoid to postpone, like for example, this session, try to avoid it by all means, and try to continue with our regular life as much as we can, and leverage the fact that we already got technology to keep this ongoing. And we have been going back and forth with most of our clients, and everyone is working remotely. So we need to be just conscious that perhaps the circumstances won't change in a while, and we need to adapt, and we need to be open to options and leverage technology for continue working as usual.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? Rachel, I'm sure you have questions.
Also, we have been having different conversations at work on how can we leverage, like that everyone is at home. And in terms of, obviously it's always better to have a face-to-face conversation, but now that everyone is at home, then perhaps we can leverage this and start doing more webinars and, trying to target our audience in different ways. Like perhaps we didn't think perhaps a few weeks ago. So now we're trying to think in a different way. Again, use technology, being more targeting in a more digital way our audience.
Absolutely.
I can ask a question. Thank you for the prompting, Danu. I'm curious, so I'm a policy student. My name is Rachel. And I'm curious as, I forget if you said, I think you said you were an IT student, if you took any policy classes, and if so, if you find them helpful in your work, and also if there's any classes that really just stand out to you in general that were helpful for you in your career, or any maybe that you didn't take that you now think would have been useful to take. So yeah, just an overall kind of reflection on the classes that you took at CMU and their impact on your work.
I can't remember like any class from policy, to be honest. Perhaps there was like an overlap, or there are a few courses that they have an overlap. Like for example, public speaking. To give you an example of one. Definitely, there were lectures that they will stick with me, for the rest of my life. So a few of them, I must admit that they were with around technology. Like most of them, I remember, for example, databases with Janusz. Database in particular, because by then I already thought I knew everything, and it was to my surprise to know that actually I didn't. So, like hitting that wall and getting really good feedback and the way you can improve is always good. I also remember, now that I'm thinking on this, I would say perhaps all the financials. I remember that there was an overlap with the MPPs. Financial, once you start, like going in that red level, you will start looking at the numbers, and everything will end up in perhaps a financial number in a PLN. So I would say that having those courses around accounting and financials were crucial, and I'm really grateful for them.
Thank you.
Chris, how about you? Do you have a question? Okay, let me ask another one, Marco. Going forward, you're still mid-career, and you've got a long way to go in terms of building your career ladder. The red ladder will obviously keep growing for you. If you were to look at yourself 10 years from now, what are you doing now that's preparing yourself for what you'd like to be in 10 years' time?
The way in which I look at it, I'm trying to understand what's perhaps a really good combination for creating innovative solutions for companies. So if something I have been learning, perhaps for the last few months, is like trying to validate those those assumption or hypotheses, different ways that we can improve the day-to-day life of different industries or domains. So what I'm trying, or the way in which I see myself perhaps in the future, is perhaps joining or being again part of a different startup, perhaps with a different role, mentoring or explaining perhaps what was my journey with previous startups, and then trying to apply those learnings and that knowledge to future entrepreneurs.
It's great. And do you think that Carnegie Mellon, the education you got from Carnegie Mellon, would stay relevant even then? And if so, what specific insights do you think would you like to provide to students in terms of looking long term and trying to build those initial steps on the ladder, so that that ladder remains strong, and that you have a very, very focused career journey ahead of you?
Well, to keep yourself a well-rounded person, I would say, Carnegie Mellon provided me the soft skills required, with public speaking, and the financials and the accountings from TK. That was always really appreciated. But at the same time, I had the technical background, like with the use of cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So the fact that I was perhaps a well-rounded person in terms of the skills has been perhaps the most insightful, skills that Carnegie Mellon provided me.
Thank you. Does anyone have any further questions before I bring this to a close?
Yeah, Dano, I do.
Yes, fantastic.
Before I would actually ask Marco the question, I would like to let everybody know that we had a chance to associate with Marco, Ivan, and associate with Hubble in a client project as part of the digital transformation course Professor Riaz. And overall, the experience has been great. It was amazing to work on their model and get our hands dirty with the code. It was really good exposure. So with that being said, my question to Marco is, how do you, in future, would you still be interested in having more such collaborations with CMU students? And what does that mean to you and Hubble in terms of any value that we bring to?
Absolutely. Part of our strategies, or better said, we got a strategy for community network that includes partnerships with different universities, continue working with students. They bring life to our work, I must say, and they bring a clear insight of like a different approach of things. And their students always challenge, why are you doing things? And they bring more solutions or different solutions to the table. And definitely that is something that we will continue doing. And this community network strategy is not only with universities, but also with people outside, trying to make a difference as well, trying to fight climate change, or startups community. That could be another area. So we're always keen to be part and be positively contributing to the entire community, not only in the construction area, but trying to find where is an overlap, or where can we find similar-minded people trying to make a difference, trying to spin off a company, or entrepreneurs outside. And this obviously includes, universities and students.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you for your guidance and support that you provided us during the project. It was really fun working with you.
No, on the contrary, and actually it will be, both to mention that working with Carnegie Mellon students, actually you were able to improve our accuracy of our models. So we are currently using deep learning, to find estimates of the impact of energy efficiency. And by working with students during one of your courses, we were able to improve that accuracy and actually remove our error by half. So actually it was amazing, a terrific experience working with you, and of course looking forward to continuing working with students.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I just had
Okay,
a question on if we wanted to learn more about, you mentioned the green loan opportunities that companies that use your services may be eligible for. So do you have any resources for just learning more about how Australia is supporting individuals who want to make a transition to a more sustainable building infrastructure?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I believe that there is one bank in particular. I can share the details by email, perhaps with Danu. There is one bank, I won't say the name just to, well, I can say it is National Australian Bank. They are providing a better interest for the first 5 years. So then they're taking removing 3.3 points of 0.5 points, something in that range, for the first 5 years for your mortgage. This is quite new, still in Australia, and perhaps this is the second intent to get something like this. It hasn't had any traction, like really good traction in the market, as far as I know, because it has been really difficult to demonstrate how building is quite, or to demonstrate or define what's energy efficiency. So that's when we're trying to, there is a gap that we're trying to resolve. And however, this is something that has been happening in the European market for a while. Europe is perhaps 5 or 10 years ahead on the strategies that they are using for fighting climate change and energy efficiency for residential buildings. And this is a common practice in Europe. And again, happy to share a few links with you, so you can see perhaps what is already happening in different parts of the world, and how Australia is slowly trying to adapt these strategies, or put them in place.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could share any resources.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Marco, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been our first Red Ladders event, and there's no doubt that you've set the high bar, for others to follow. The discussion has definitely been insightful, and I'm sure the students would be very keen to stay in touch with you as much as we at CMU, staff and faculty, continue to engage with you in a very productive way. So thanks so much for your time. We know that you've taken time off your very, very busy schedule, and we look forward to another time when we can hear from you. And we wish you the very best in your Red Ladders journey.
Thank you very much, Dano. It was a pleasure, and it's always good to be back at CMU-A.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.